Welcome to United We Spay, the show dedicated to promoting affordable spay-neuter services nationwide. Each episode delves into the heart of the movement, sharing inspiring stories and driving positive change. Our goal is to raise awareness, educate, and empower, addressing overpopulation's root causes to ensure every animal has a chance for a better life. Hosted by Stacy and Brianna and the United Spay Alliance team, we're on a mission to change lives. Fed up with the fixation on symptoms in the animal welfare conversation, it's time to change the narrative. Join us on United We Spay, where we make a difference by spreading knowledge and building a compassionate world for animals. Let's put prevention first and spotlight spay-neuter in the animal welfare space.
You're listening to United We Spay, a podcast from United Spay Alliance. United Spay Alliance works to promote accessible, affordable, and timely spay-neuter services. Because an ounce of prevention today can prevent untold suffering tomorrow. Spay-neuter, it's public health for pets. I'm Stacy and Brianna, United Spay Alliance board member and host of the show. And today on United We Spay, we are talking with Brianna Lovell Myers, or Bree, who is the administrative director of the United Spay Alliance. In her role, Bree manages the day-to-day operations of the organization, overseeing initiatives like the Wet Lab program, which offers hands-on training in safe and efficient spay-neuter techniques for veterinarians, and administering the Community Cats Grants program, which provides essential funding and support to smaller organizations working to reduce cat overpopulation. Bree began her career in animal welfare in 2013 at Alley Cat Allies, where she worked in community outreach and event management, and later continued her work with grassroots organizations as an independent consultant. She remains passionate about advancing spay-neuter as the cornerstone of effective animal care and protection. Bree holds a Master of Public Administration from West Virginia University. She lives in Maryland with her husband, son, and senior cat, Finnegan. Welcome to the show, Bree.
Hello. I'm very excited to be here on United We Spay.
Excellent. Well, and thank you for joining us. And thank you so much for all that you do and have done and continue to do to help support the United Spay Alliance. And obviously, one of the key folks that have actually helped make this podcast be a reality. United We Spay. It's pretty amazing that we do have a podcast, considering 2 or 3 years ago, we weren't even really talking about United Spay Alliance and the future of the organization. And we've really grown a lot in the last couple of years. And much of that is to the work that you have done as an advocate for spay-neuter. But let me tell the folks, find out from you, why are you so passionate about spay-neuter?
That's a good question. I think I've had different aha moments, the different levels. If I'm really thinking back to how I came into the animal rescue space or welfare space in the first place, I can remember growing up, my aunt lived with my grandmother, and the two of them, I just remember them always taking in cats who were outside. And I thought, as a kid, you think, oh, fun, cats, this is great. I love going to visit and I get to play with the kitties. And then, as you grow up, you're like, wait, maybe it's, having that many cats around your house, in your house, maybe there's something better to do. And, they were, in a low income situation. My grandfather had chronic health issues. And so, they were kind of on a very fixed income dealing with those things. There wasn't a penny to spare to go get cats spayed or neutered. It wasn't even something that I think that we considered as a possibility. They just saw cats outside and decided to feed them and trying to do the best they could by them. And so having that background of, knowing what it is to have that strict budget, but also want to do right by animals, and then feeling like you have nowhere to turn to help, and no resources. I really kind of came at it from there has to be a better way than just saying, oh, well, we can't, because we can't turn into more and more cats. And so that's not a realistic solution.
Ma'am. Well, it makes sense. I mean, what you saw was just happening right before your eyes. You're seeing cats that weren't spayed or neutered and the population growing. And I was raised in an environment where my mother got her cat spayed or neutered in 1961. And I didn't realize that was a strange thing to do. But it seems like many people were not getting their cat spayed or neutered at that point in time. And I was raised in an environment like, well, everybody gets their cat spayed or neutered. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? And so we're coming at it from two different perspectives. Our focus of our conversation today is to actually fast forward through to our working together at the United Spay Alliance and really focusing in on this program we've called Wet Lab. So Wet Lab program. And so many people are asking me, what is a wet lab? What do you do at that? So maybe just give us a little background about the program and define what that is.
Yeah. So the term wet lab, and I'm assuming that you can do wet labs for any type of training that you would like. And so our wet lab program, and that wet lab just refers to the fact that there are real animals involved. Surgeons are getting their hands on animals and learning these techniques in real time. And our wet lab focuses on high quality, high volume spay and neuter techniques. So this kind of stemmed from the idea of, well, if there aren't enough spay neuter appointments available, maybe there aren't enough surgeons who know how to do them or to do them efficiently and in a way that's going to be cost effective for the veterinarian in the practice, and then also, a cost effective strategy for the community. And so if there aren't enough vets who can do the spay and neuter, maybe we can help provide that training. And we really come at it from the perspective that high quality, high volume spay neuter is a best practice. And whoever's doing the spay and neuter, it does not matter, whether you are in a private practice setting or whether you're working in a MASH clinic out in the middle, of a rural situation, it does not matter. Those techniques are still going to benefit the veterinary teams that are involved, and they're going to benefit the animal patients. Every high quality, high volume surgeon that I have talked to has always approached it from the perspective of, well, these incisions are smaller, for the patient. This strategy means they're less, they're spending less time on the table. Like everything comes down to how is this going to affect, the animal who is on the table. And if we can give them a smaller incision site, that's going to be an easier recovery. If we can minimize the time that they're under anesthesia, that's going to impact them. So anyway, it all comes down to safety and efficiency. And we are just so eager to see more and more people pick up these techniques and use them.
Where did we have our first wet lab?
Our very first wet lab, and I'm going to give a huge shout out to Dr. Beth Sperry up there in Maine. And so our first wet lab was actually at the Animal Refuge League of Greater Portland in Portland, Maine. And that was in April of 2023.
And just walk me through, what does a day look like at this wet lab and how do students get involved? And when I say students, I mean these are licensed veterinarians.
Yes. And so that is an important distinction and something we've learned to be careful with our language when we are planning these events. So we now refer to our instructors are the trainers. And so they're the folks out there who are giving the training. And then we have the attendees, our trainees are how we refer to them usually, just to avoid confusion with vet students who are in school. And so these training sessions are for licensed veterinarians. And so a typical day for the clinic, it's going to look like a regular spay-neuter clinic, more or less. Like they're bringing in cats, they're organizing the volunteers or staff they might need to run a clinic day. So far, all of our trainings have been for cats. That's going to change in 2025. And so they're lining up about 30, 35 cats for surgery for the day. They're preparing. Everything looks like a normal clinic. So if you have any experience participating in a spay-neuter clinic, it's going to feel more or less the same to you. I think the difference comes in for the teaching veterinarians who are, of course, focused on teaching. And so the pace of the day is going to be a little bit slower than maybe a traditional clinic. But other than that, things are going to run more or less the way a spay-neuter clinic would run from that perspective. Now, if you are a veterinarian who is coming to learn, your day is going to start around 8 a.m. You're going to come in and you're going to meet everyone. You'll probably hear a little bit about the organizations that are involved in supporting the training, because this is a very collaborative event. Multiple folks are usually involved. So you'll hear a little bit from everyone, but then you're going to jump right into, we call it the dry lab. And so before you head into the surgical suite, you're going to learn and get some hands-on training, practicing tying different knots or this is where I'm not a veterinarian, so I stand, aside and let the trainers decide, exactly what the agenda for the day is or how they want to approach it. But generally, they have that dry lab session where they're actually practicing outside of the surgery suite on some different techniques that they can, do ahead of time. And then usually by about 9:30, they get in there as quickly as they can. They go right into the surgery space. And so they are actually getting hands-on experience performing largely spays. There's usually a couple neuters that work their way into the rotation, but we focus a lot on the feline spay surgery just because that tends to be so time intensive. And so folks are getting hands-on. They have usually our trainees get about 5 to 6 surgeries under their belt over the course of a day. There's usually lunch, some refreshments provided. People rotate on tables and off tables. So you're kind of rotating between observing and doing, and then, you can rotate out and get some refreshments, then come back in, but your day is going to wrap up around 4:30 p.m. So it's really a full day of hands-on experience working on actual cats and learning and using these techniques.
So I think we've mentioned this before, but I will bring it forward again. You do not have to be a veterinarian working for a nonprofit clinic to be able to participate in this. And ideally, you could even have a wet lab at your own corporate practice to train the veterinarians that are at your clinic, or say you own a couple of clinics and you want to do an in-service. This is possible for your own private practice.
Yes, absolutely. We aren't gatekeeping these techniques just for, those nonprofit clinic settings. These are going to benefit anyone who wants to apply them. And we welcome folks. And we've had attendees come who are, I just had an equine veterinarian register for a wet lab because he happens to see a lot of like barn cats, I think, in his travels. And so he's been 20 years working on horses, but here he is going back to the basics, trying to learn some spay neuter. And so it's a little bit of everybody, I would say, that comes to these wet labs.
After we've had the wet lab, and how many have we had so far?
So I was just running the numbers because I knew this was going to come up. And so I'm going to say by the end of 2024, we will have hosted a total of 10 wet lab sessions. And that's 10 wet labs in 5 different states. And that's, again, since our first wet lab happened in April of 2023.
And with every trainee that we have, we usually give them a questionnaire at the end of the session. I know we can't review every questionnaire, but are there some highlights from those questionnaires that you remember?
Oh, absolutely. We've had some excellent feedback, and because I really do, we are constantly looking to grow and evolve this program, and we want it to be something that can be adapted. The way that we run this program in Maine is different than the way it ran in Florida, is different than the way it ran in Georgia. And so we know that every training is going to be unique to the community that it's there to serve. So I'm always eager to get the evaluation forms to kind of hear how that collaboration came together, and was it impactful, and was it what the trainees or the students who showed up that day, is it what they were looking for? And so we've had a lot of great feedback, honestly. So far, we've gotten a lot of 5 out of 5s, a lot of "this was awesome," "I've had a great day." Let's see, I'm looking at a list here because I like to keep a short list of all the things folks are saying. But I think one of my favorite pieces of feedback we got was actually a picture that someone drew. And I think it was like a diagram of like a cat. They had like a before and an after, and they had my incision site before, and it was this big long line, and then my incision after, and it was this little tiny incision spot. And so I think that was for the visual folks, it was really cool to see that they had gained that confidence. And I think that's what comes across most for me in those comments, is that the confidence boost that this gives to people who felt like because it can be intimidating to walk into a true high volume clinic if you're not an experienced veterinarian, and the clinic staff is expecting you to turn around a surgery within, 10 minutes or, whatever the pace of that clinic might be. If you're not a surgeon who can perform on that level yet, it's hard to get there. right? If you don't have opportunities like this to practice and to get your hands, on surgeries that will give you the space to learn. And so we have found that it's a real confidence boost for folks.
So if someone who's listening to this podcast is going, well, okay, great, I'm sold. I want one of these. How do I get one of these? How do I do this? How does, do we just call up Bree and say, Bree, make this happen? What happens?
Yes. Okay. So yes, I mean, USA is here to be a facilitator. I love working with groups and helping to make it happen, but I will say it is a partnership. So I cannot do it all on my own, and I don't expect you to do it either. So we work together, I would say. And so as the folks on the ground, what I expect from them generally when I'm talking to someone new is, I need someone on the ground who is going to be able to help organize the clinic, as far as like those just logistics, both inside the surgery suite and outside, because there's a lot of like the front of house, like quote unquote, that happens that needs to be managed. And so, the logistics just of running a clinic that's going to have 30 cats or however many dogs coming through. You need to source those cats and dogs, right? So are you partnering with a shelter, with a rescue? Where are you coming from? And then you need to have a veterinary team that can support this. And so we are at this point, our wet labs are for veterinarians. I highly, highly encourage folks to get vet techs and other support staff that are experienced with this kind of high volume or higher volume clinic setting, because it's going to be on them. Honestly, they run the show. I think they probably run the show a lot of the time anyway, but especially during these wet labs, the vet techs are going to be the ones that are shuffling, the cat or dog through the process, while the veterinarians are going to be focused on teaching, and that's what they're going to give their time and attention to. So you need someone else who knows what they're doing really to run the show. And let's see, you need somewhere to hold a clinic, whether it's a space with one table, two tables, whatever you have available. You need the space, you need the equipment, you need the team, you need folks who are committed to helping you pull it off. And then if you can help with all of that, then USA can help with, we have our checklist of how we've pulled these things together. And so I know at this point, different questions to ask and things to think about. We help with funding. And so we reach out to different grant makers or foundations in the area to help find financial support. So we do have like a budget for these events, and, we are able to reimburse up to a certain amount to cover those expenses. And so a lot of that reimbursement is given for staff stipends. And so we do pay the veterinarians. We do provide a stipend to distribute to your veterinary team. And then we also, take care of the continuing education. And so we're very proud that every single wet lab so far has been approved for CE. We take care of those applications, whether that's working with the state VMA or reaching out to a different professional licensing accreditation board, whatever it might be. We take care of the registration. And so we'll set up the registration, we'll promote it, we'll do all of the recruitment. I follow up with each of the folks who registers. When someone drops, I deal with, the musical chairs game of, okay, we have a spot open and who gets it. And so you don't have to worry about any of those logistics, dealing with, the trainees, following up with their questions, sending out the homework. I tried my best to keep folks organized. I keep I schedule our calls, our check-ins to make sure folks are talking to one another. I help draft the press releases and things like that from the higher level. So it's a little give and take, I guess. So we're at we work remotely together. So as a facilitator, we're able to provide up to a certain level of support. But then, you as the boots on the ground, you have your team together. And then you guys are the ones that make magic happen on the day of the event.
What are the expectations of those trainees after the event is over?
We always, our hope, right? And I think everyone listening out here is hoping with me that like every person who attends just is bit with the spay-neuter bug, and that they all want to commit themselves to either volunteering or helping or committing in some way to spay-neuter events moving forward. And that absolutely 100%, that's the goal. That's the dream, right? However, is that a realistic expectation? Probably not. But we do follow up with folks to say, here's your next steps, right? And so we've had a one-day wet lab, which is enough to give them some flavor of what high quality, high volume spay neuter is like. It is an introduction, but it is just that. It is an introduction. It is, 1 8-hour day. It's only 5 to 6 surgeries. And so it's not going to be the end of their journey. It's just the beginning. So we do give them next steps. And I always encourage the folks I'm working with to think of, what that pathway looks like. And so can they create opportunities to invite those folks back and make it very clear that when they do come back, they are not held to the same standard as, an experienced high volume surgeon, that they're being invited back with that same kind of protective space around them to continue learning. Because again, we're just building their confidence here. We want to make sure they know that they are still welcome, still invited to continue that learning. And that way they will, as they grow, and they'll be more confident, and maybe eventually they'll be on the, the bandwagon, but we gotta get them there. And so we always do talk about next steps as part of, our planning conversations, is making sure we are giving trainees, whether it is a contact, whether it is a spay-neuter spay-a-thon, something like that coming up, a couple places to volunteer for, a listserv to get on, whatever that is, we definitely want to make sure we're including them in those next steps and making it easy for them to stay involved.
And I believe our dream is that every state has a wet lab.
That is the dream. I would love every, and I mean, honestly, some states are so large, like I would love every community, like everyone should have a wet lab. There's so many places that need this level of support. And honestly, there are places where there just is nothing. And so if you have the ability to host a wet lab and then some ability to kind of try to get the veterinarians out to the areas where they are needed most, I don't have all the answers here, right? This is just one tiny piece of a very complicated puzzle. But we would love for every state to have a wet lab. And then as a next step, we have to think about getting those vets out to the areas where they're needed.
Well, we have a couple more minutes here, Bree. Do you want to share with folks what else United Spay Alliance has been up to?
What else? So we have lots of cool things going on. Obviously, the wet lab program is one of the initiatives we've been focusing a lot of our time and attention on, but we have a lot of really cool programs. I think the first thing that comes to mind, obviously, is our spay-neuter directory. I think that is kind of I call it our bread and butter. It's kind of where we started, and it's at our core of what we do, because it is probably our most public-facing service that we provide to, the general public. And if Google Analytics is to be believed, we get, thousands and thousands of folks using that directory every single month. So we know it's being used. And so we have invested our time, our volunteers have given us their time to make that directory as up to date as possible. And so that includes, at this point, it includes low cost spay-neuter services, but we are also including other community support services like TNR and, voucher programs and pet food pantries and anything else our volunteers come across in their travels, so to speak. As they are researching spay-neuter options, we are adding it to that directory because we want it to be as comprehensive as possible. If someone's reaching out for spay-neuter assistance, the odds are they're going to need some other type of assistance along the way. And we know it's not a perfect list, and but we are looking constantly to our state leaders, to our network of supporters, to our friends, our family. Anyone can help us keep this list updated. It's on our website. We do have a form that anyone can submit to let us know if something is missing or information has changed. It is ever evolving. And so we have that directory, and that is a labor of love, I would say, for a lot of folks who have given their time to that. And so thank you. If you are one of those folks who has helped us with that directory, we appreciate you. But I think tied into that, obviously, is our state leader network. And so our state leaders support that directory. If folks go to their state's landing page, which every state has a landing page, by the way, it's unitedspayalliance.org/ your state's abbreviation. So I'm in Maryland, so it would be /MD. Stacy in Vermont would be VT. And so, you can find your own state's landing page, but if you have a state leader, you'll notice that you also have the contact information for that specific leader. So that means the public, if they can't find the help that they're looking for, or they have another challenge, something else that's getting in the way between them making an appointment or getting the help that they need for their pet, Then the state leader is there as another layer, right? Another resource for folks to turn to and try to solve some of those challenges. But on the back end, our state leaders are also connected with one another. I feel like I'm in constant communication with them, trying to share as much as I can, because we love relationship building. We love networking. We very much at United Spay Alliance, we believe that no one should have to reinvent the wheel. We have folks in this movement who've been working at it 30 plus years. So we figured out some stuff along the way. So there's no need for anyone to be turning their wheels when instead we can just keep moving forward. And so that's one of the beautiful things about the network is we have folks who have been doing this work for a long, long time, and then folks who are just getting into it, and we're all sharing ideas. We're all working together toward the same goal of increasing access to spay and neuter. So those are the two probably like top of mind. But then we have some other cool programs like our Vet Shortage Task Force talking about challenges in the vet space and accessing affordable care right now. We have we have regular webinars. We have our online conference coming up in October. So yeah, we have lots of cool things going on, and just our website is our main hub of information. So I encourage you to check us out at unitedspayalliance.org.
And I know another, one of our bedrock, I always just want to remind people multiple times, we Feline Fixed by 5. And we have, I actually think Feline Fixed by 5 has been almost around longer than the United Spay Alliance, I feel like. And we merged and sort of became one, but we still promote Feline Fixed by 5.
Yes, absolutely. And that came about in 2016. So it's probably like the same-ish age as United Spay Alliance. And so technically it's under our umbrella right now in partnership with Marion's Dream. But Feline Fixed by 5 is it's such an important program because obviously we know kittens can get pregnant and can start having litters as early as 5 months. And so that is why we are promoting Feline Fixed by 5 to prevent those unwanted litters. And those are based off of recommendations that came from a veterinary task force. And so a group of veterinarians who understand the research and the science came together in 2016 and put together the recommendations on the age of feline sterilization. We have the consensus document in the research I'm referring to. It's all on the Feline Fixed by 5 website if you want to dig into it. But those recommendations were endorsed by the AVMA, along with several other state VMAs, along with several other organizations. So it continues to be a movement to get more and more veterinarians because believe it or not, there's no agreed upon age on when should kittens be spayed and neutered. That's not something they teach in vet school. There's no consensus. So this is looking to build that consensus. And that's why Feline Fixed by 5 is so important.
If folks only had one takeaway from today's conversation, what would it be?
I hope it is that, man, I really want to host a wet lab. I should reach out to Bree to see if I can make that happen. Because honestly, if you're listening and you're thinking, I'm just one person, how can I do that? I'm just little old me. And the answer I have learned in my experience so far is that none of us are in this alone. There's always someone out there who is ready to help. So you got to find your people, find those who might think like you and just reach out and introduce yourself. And so if you're feeling isolated and like you are all alone, I guarantee you, if you call someone in your community, you're going to start to build your own network of support. And so I encourage you to reach out and to start, finding your people, finding those organizations who might want to get involved with you. And then who knows, maybe you all will want to get on the spay neuter training bandwagon with me. And we'd love to add you to our list for 2025 or beyond.
So if folks are interested in asking you, any questions about the wet lab, how could they find you?
You can find me on the interwebs. So you can reach out to me. My email, I'll just give my email address, is Brianna at unitedspayalliance.org. And that's BRIANNA. So there's 2 N's, Brianna at unitedspayalliance.org.
I want to thank everyone for listening today. If you liked this episode, be sure to share and subscribe. We'll be releasing a new episode each month, digging into important conversations surrounding spay-neuter throughout the U.S. and around the world. For more resources for spay-neuter and to learn more about our work at unitedspayalliance.org, that's unitedspayalliance.org, or get in touch with us at any time by emailing info@unitedspayalliance.org, or feel free to reach out to Bree. Thank you so much, and until next time.
Thank you.